Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candace Marie. Happy Friday. I hope you guys are doing well. Back at it with another Friday live, and this evening we're going to be doing live tarot readings. So if you can see me, give me a thumbs up, like the stream, consider sharing, and make sure that you are subscribed. Subscribe below to the channel. We're here every Friday and we alternate between tarot and astrology readings. It is live on September 26th, Friday. And if you guys are watching this on Saturday or Sunday, I'm no longer live, so please don't request a reading. And I'll catch you guys back here next week for live astrology for that full moon in Aries. We've got a number of people who are already in the queue. So if this is your first time getting a reading and you want to get one, you scan the QR code right up there. We're doing 1 or 3 card readings. It's $20 for 1 card, and we are going to be charging $40 for a 3 card reading. You can ask any one question you want. Please make sure you put that in the memo box when you make your donation on PayPal. We also take Super Chat if you are on YouTube in the chat, or you can join my level 4 memberships, support me as a full-time content creator. You'll get a reading once a month, your choice of tarot or astrology, during one of my Friday lives. And you guys will also get access to my daily horoscope club, and you get shout outs from me. So thank you guys so much if you are a member. We've seen so much growth in the memberships this month. We are actually giving early viewing, I guess, to our membership. So any level is going to see some of the videos that come out early before the scheduled times that they usually air on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. So not Friday, but definitely on Sundays. All right, so hello to everybody in the chat. I hope you guys are doing well. Happy Friday. We have got a number of people here. Lula's here. What's up, Matt? David's in the chat. The Paula Project. What's up, Edith? Hey, Dorothy. How are you guys doing? Dorothy says it's almost your birthday month. Almost. I have one more month, and then I'm going to be on the wrong side of 35. But yes, it's coming up. Scorpio season cannot come quick enough. So for those of you guys who are already in the queue, I'll call out your names and let you know. And if you hear your name, that means number 1, I've got you. And number 2, if you hear your name again, it means that you're kind of up for your reading. If you can't hang around for your reading, no worries. You can always come back and watch this replay so you can get your reading in the queue, and then you can come back at a later time. Leave me comments. Let me know how your reading ends up hitting down the road. It's always fun to read those comments later on. And we're gonna get right into it. So do we have any level 4 members here who are wanting to get a reading? I haven't seen anybody yet, but I saw, what is that? The Zaharaja Shai? Am I saying your name right? Well, thank you for joining level 3. They got their monthly horoscope, so that's cool. And if we don't have any level member 4 people who pop in, then we're gonna go right into the queue. As a reminder, this is the last live that we're going to be doing in September. So if you know that you have a credit to cash in on for your memberships, definitely consider joining. But we've got Lula, we've got Matt, we've got Alana that's waiting. What's up, Rosie? Well, hello there. That's who I have in the queue right now. And we'll let you guys know, depending on how busy it is, we will decide when we're going to kind of shut the queue down, or we're going to kind of wrap up the live reading. So I'll let you guys know as we get closer to that. Sound good? All right, so let's get started. We're gonna start with Lula. And I got your little message there, Lula. She says, let's see. I'm a Taurus rising with a Cancer sun and Cancer moon, and my coworker is a Virgo sun. Okay, cool, that's a good combo. So Lula says, I'd like a 3-card tarot reading, please. What will happen between me and my coworker? Will things end between us? Backstory, we're currently just casual with each other, and I asked him what he wants with me, and he has not gotten back to me. Thanks in advance. So before we even get into the reading, just knowing that you're a Taurus rising, something that I would just kind of put out there, is that obviously you've seen through the transits recently, like the last month or 2, planets have been going through obviously Virgo, which is your 5th house, which does deal with romance, right? And planets have been meeting with the South Node. So it can deal with like karmic stuff. It can deal with people kind of coming and then going. And obviously Virgo can deal with romantic connections to like people that we work with. So The last planet that is yet to come into conjunction with the South Node is going to be happening this week. So you might want to go back, look at the transits over the last couple of weeks. When the Sun was conjunct the South Node about 3 weeks ago, when Mars was conjunct the South Node, which was several weeks ago, and look at the storyline between what's been kind of playing out between you and this other person, because it may give you some insight. And obviously they're a Virgo. So Venus hitting the South Node, I think, may be a little bit more challenging this week for Taurus and Libra risings, because obviously that's your chart ruler. So it can represent somebody who is kind of ghosty or unavailable. But there can also be like a returning that can happen when Venus is hitting the South Node. And not only is it, you know, in Virgo, so it can deal with like coworkers and working out like romantic kind of kinks, but it also is at 18 degrees, which deals with somebody that we work with. So I think that conjunction, what day is that going to be? I think that's going to be, just so I can give you a day for reference, it's going to be around like the 3rd and the 4th of October. Okay, so somewhere around those days, that's when you're really going to want to be paying attention to what's happening. But let's see if we can answer your question in regards to obviously the coworker that you're kind of trying to keep things casual with, but he hasn't gotten back to you to let you know what he is looking for. So let's see what the cards have to say. All right, so give us insight to this coworker. What's the deal? What's going to happen? What does he want? All right, so this is the order that I got the cards in. Wheel of Fortune, the Hermit card, and the Two of Wands. So I like that the tarot is starting off pretty direct and strong. Obviously the Virgo card, the Hermit, is popping up. So this is talking about literally dealing with a Virgo. But it can also be kind of discussing that there is this sense of pause and reflection that he's like currently going through. So cards actually look pretty positive. I'm not pulling any cups or anything like that. So there's no definitive answer in regards to a relationship, but the Wheel of Fortune is coming up as the first card. So it's saying, well, the situation is about to turn, it's about to change. Obviously the Wheel of Fortune is usually a card that's kind of positive. It does deal with, you know, Jupiter energies, things that are expanding, things that are changing. I think about how Jupiter represents your 8th house as a Taurus rising, which deals with like intimacy, right? And so something you're going to see is down the road as we're getting into November, there's going to be a retrograde in that part of your chart. You're actually going to see Mercury retrograde, your 5th house ruler, from Sagittarius in your 8th house back into Scorpio in your 7th house. So a lot of Taurus and Taurus risings are going to go through this reevaluation when it comes to either a relationship or something that's casual, and they're kind of trying to define, okay, what does this person want? Are they coming back to me? And what is the change in direction? Now that's really important because the astrology is really mirroring what the cards are saying, but Jupiter is going to be the dispositor of the Mercury retrograde. Well, Jupiter is going to be in your 3rd house in Cancer. So it's going to be dancing with, you know, obviously making aspects to anything that you have in Cancer and anything that you have in Taurus. So being a Cancer sun and moon, that's the time to kind of lay it all out there and be like, look, this is how I'm feeling. What do you think? What do you want? And what I like about that transit is that you're going to see, even in spite of like the Mercury retrograde, it's going to trine, you know, Saturn in Pisces. It's going to trine Neptune in Pisces. So you're going to be able to have a better understanding of, are we friends or are we something more? And it'll give you an opportunity to kind of speak from the heart. Now, the current card that we got is the Hermit card. So this can be talking about the Virgo specifically. It can also be talking about this pause and reflection that either you or he are both doing, and kind of turning within and being like, okay, what am I looking for? And I think it's not just so much about him, although it is calling him out. It is saying that you're trying to shed light on the situation. You're like, okay, what do you want? Like, what's going on? Where is this going? And like, you're at least enthusiastic or kind of like optimistic about what could happen between the two of you. You know, if he is a Virgo and if you're going through some of these transits, I think that I would just take into consideration that like Virgos are still dealing with Saturn and Neptune retrogrades in their, you know, relationship house. So there can be a sense of them going, well, you know, is what I'm searching for, you know, like obtainable? Do I really fully trust somebody that I'm meeting? Do I know if I'm ready for a relationship? So he can still be kind of in this like reassessment period. It doesn't mean he's not open to it, but literally this is a card that says it's about solitude and introspection when it comes to love. And it's also about really reevaluating what direction he's going in. So if you give him some time and some space to kind of suss this out, and you allow that to kind of unfold over the next 6 weeks when the retrograde energies start up, I do feel like he's going to come back around and he's going to be very open-minded. Now, I don't think he's going to be definitive in a sense of I want a relationship or I'm not wanting a relationship. I think the Two of Wands is the final card, is basically saying, I see a future here. There is potential. I want to see where this goes. I want to see if this could be something. And this is a card that's about feeling like optimistic and like wanting to, you know, take a chance in relationships. It says that this can be about partnership exploration. So it can be like, well, let's give it a go. Let's see how things go. Like, it's not definitively committing to one another, but it is saying that, you know, dating each other and getting to know each other to see if you can get on the path of a relationship or commitment is likely where this is going. And what's funny is, like, in a way, you're putting it out there now being like, hey, what are we doing? And he hasn't said anything. I would like you to be more like the energy of the Hermit card. Like, I would like you to be like, cool, he didn't give me a response. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, like, until he steps up to bat and decides that he wants to initiate a conversation, or he's going to be trying to go out of his way to see me or go out and do something. Like, you're going to be cool as a cucumber, because it's giving him that opportunity to actually react and respond. With Mercury retrograde, especially for like Virgos, you know, that's going to be happening in Sagittarius back into Pisces, and you're going to see some of those trines to Saturn and Neptune in their 7th house. So I could see this as, you know, him reviewing some of the text messages you guys have had, him going back and forth with conversations that you've had, and then deciding or determining whether or not he's going to work up like the guts to, you know, make moves and tell you what he's looking for. So give him a little bit of space. I do think that it is going to end up being something where you guys are going to start seeing each other, but he has to kind of come around to that idea. So just let him do that and be more open to kind of sussing out what it is that, you know, you're looking for. It's not so much about him and waiting for him. When he comes back around, you're going to be like, okay, are we doing this or not? And you guys should start to kind of spend more time together. You know, the Two of Wands can also represent getting outside of your usual kind of hangout. So if you're working together, obviously the Two of Wands is like, okay, do we go away for a weekend? Like, do we go hiking together? Do we have an activity that we can do where we can actually get to know each other outside of the kind of usual workspace? So let me know what happens. Certainly, I would say the September period through about the end of November is kind of the time period that you're working with. So you just kind of, you know, initiated and started Virgo season last month, and it's going to take you until about the end of the year. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful. Let me know what happens with your dude. But I think he's open-minded, to be honest with you. I think he's open to it. All right, we've got Matt is next up, and Alana. What's up, Donald? How's it going? Scorpio power. All right, Matt. Matt's got 2 questions for me. So he says, I have 2 questions, if that's okay. First, I have to go back to my old job on Monday for one last day to be in compliance with my contract, so I won't have to pay them $3,000. It's just one day, but that job was and is crazy dangerous. So I'm wondering how Monday will go. Second, at my current teaching gig, there is a parent that the whole school thinks is crazy and is always blowing things out of proportion. He's given my coworkers hell and has already given me some problems in the past. I'm wondering if if I'm gonna have to continue to deal with him twisting my words, or is the situation with him going to calm down, or do I need to worry about making things difficult? Well, thankfully, some of the astrology on Monday, for the most part, is, you know, a little bit calmer than what we have been experiencing in recent weeks. So that's working in your favor. And it's interesting because if I remember, you're in Aries rising. So it's like the moon's going to go through Capricorn and it's going to square Neptune in Aries. So there's going to be a lot of like, ooh, how are things going to go? And then it's going to start coming into a square with the sun in Libra in the 7th house. So it's about kind of fulfilling partnership agreements and contracts. So let's talk more about going back to that old job for one last day before you close out that chapter, and what that's going to look like for you. What's up, JS? All right, let's take a look. What does Matt need to know about his last day at the old job? So So the cards that I get for you are the Eight of Wands, the Three of Cups, and the Knight of Wands. It's funny, I kind of feel like you're going to go back and there's going to be some people there that didn't anticipate seeing you again. Or they're like, oh, Matt's back. Or like, they're going to be like, take us with you. You know, like there's people who are going to be like excited to see you, but also people who are like, you know, like what's going on? Why are you back? Because there seems to be a lot of like social activity around kind of seeing you. I'm not surprised by this also as like a Aries rising, like a lot of like the Venus South node, you know, kind of this week in your 6th house is like, we'll have to go back and fulfill some kind of obligation or responsibility. Otherwise it's going to cost me money, right? Rules your 2nd house. So the Eight of Wands is saying like you're getting in, you're getting out. Like I don't think this is going to be chaotic because the Eight of Wands is pretty much like getting from point A to point B. You might be surprised by just how quick everything kind of goes by. And like, honestly, you're probably going to be like, this is silly that I even have to be here. Because yeah, you have to fulfill what your agreement was, but it's like, there's not really a lot that you're going to actually get done in a day, like being there. Like, will you be able to get back into the swing of things? Sure. Going through the motions and doing what you have to do, but it's like getting in and getting out. But I think there's going to be more interest revolving around people being like, why are you back? Like, what brought you back? Like, what's the deal? Like, what's happening? And people might be interested in asking you where you're going and what you're doing. So look at it as, yeah, annoying, but it's a break from your routine, and it's giving you an opportunity, I think, to return back to a place that you kind of had this really unfulfilling kind of experience with. And you're able to kind of like wrap it up and be like, okay, cool. Now I can like leave. I've said everything, seen everything that I need to see. I'm good to go. And possibly also just like letting people know that you're moving on to bigger, better things, because, you know, the Three of Cups can talk about anything revolving around collaboration, people wanting to kind of like hang out with you, have lunch with you, chat with you, and be like, what are you doing? What's going on? And like interested in what you're moving on to. All at Wands is somewhat scary. Does that mean violence? No. Eight of Wands, if it was coming up with, you know, Five of Wands, if it was coming up with Swords, I would be like, yeah, you gotta watch out. But like the Eight of Wands and the Three of Cups is excitement revolving around the people who know you there, and people being like, oh, he's back. Like, why is he back? Or like, what's going on? It has nothing to do with there being anything like confrontational or combative at all, actually. It's just more people interested in what brought you back there. And the Three of Cups might mean also that it will surprise you that there are some either students or that there are some people there who are like, you know, curious and interested in what you've got going on and like why you're returning. And you can just let them know like, hey, it's just a passing thing. I'm just here for today. And that's it. I also feel like the people who are like, hey, you know, good luck, or, you know, hope everything goes well in your new job. Like there might be people who are like surprisingly really nice to you, which makes you kind of like go, huh, that's interesting. Wasn't expecting this kind of like welcoming, or I wasn't expecting, you know, certain people to talk to me or certain people to kind of wish me well. So this is a good energy. This is something that's allowing you to return back to a place where you've had a lot of strife and kind of go, okay, now I can kind of, you know, put this away and like let it go and not feel like I'm moving on and having like a sense of like resentment or frustration or agitation towards this place that I worked at for some time. The final card that you get is the Knight of Wands. So this is, I think, you obviously, you know, as an Aries rising. It can also talk about you feeling like, okay, my whole MO is I'm getting in and I'm getting out. I'm not getting there any earlier than I need to be there. I'm not staying any longer. I'm not doing anything above and beyond what's expected of me from this one day. And this can be talking about dealing with other fire signs. So other, you know, Aries, Leos, Sagittariuses. And the Knight of Wands talks about like a message. Like usually when knights come in, it's about being like, hey, this is where I'm going, or this is what I'm doing. So, you know, all the wands are talking about you being more focused on, you know, getting to your now full-time position and not really feeling like you have to expend a lot of energy in, you know, participating in whatever's going on at work on this one day. This can mean also that you're going in and you kind of feel like you have your head on a swivel and you're like, okay, like I'm coming back into this place where it's been, you know, combative, or there's been some challenges or some confrontations, but you're going into it feeling like, you know, at least you have that sense of relief knowing that it's going to be a quick situation, you know, being there, you're going to get through your day and then you're going to go and then you're done. It does also mean that, you know, you're going to feel inspired, maybe going back and being like, yeah, after working in like the new place that I'm working in and like having some of the new connections and having some of the new like faculty and friends and other things, like you're like looking at it being like, I made the right decision. Like it was actually good to get outside of my comfort zone, look for another position, and make the decision that, you know what, the grass is going to definitely be greener at another, you know, educational center or another school. And you're going to feel really incentivized to like get out of there. So there's nothing combative. If there was swords, I would have some concerns, but I think that the, you know, Knight of Wands is somebody who is very courageous. So it can also be talking about working up the will, working up the guts to go back into the place that you felt like maybe was scary, or maybe it was unstable, you know, for a period of time working there. Obviously, we know that you sustained, you know, lots of interactions and injuries with some of the kids. And I also feel like this is about you feeling like a sense of pride and accomplishment. So I think going back there and being like, all right, cool, I'm fulfilling what I need to fulfill. But at the end of the day, like I realize I've moved on to bigger, better things. It's almost going to feel like a graduation of sorts. And the Knight of Wands is somebody who is very confident and like ready to get to the next space. So you're kind of closing that door and then you're really fully stepping into, you know, this new position. So it will be fine. I think you will just be surprised to kind of hear from certain people that are wishing you well, or people who are curious as to why you're back or where you went or where you're going. And I think that I would welcome that, because it can actually help you kind of get closure on that space and really kind of move on. So let's look at your second question, which is kind of dealing with a parent that can be a bit of a pain. And it sounds like they've been giving other people at school some issues and blowing things out of proportion. And so now you're kind of looking at this going, well, this person's giving me some problems too. Am I going to have to continue to deal with him manipulating or twisting my words? And is the situation going to calm down, or do you need to be worried about them making things difficult for you? Unfortunately, part of the other downside of some of the eclipses and the South Node transits that have been kind of happening in your sixth house, obviously, is the eclipse energy changing jobs, you know, dealing with people who are having issues and frustrations. And the other way of looking at it also is like your Pluto transits that you're going through right now, with Pluto kind of near, I think it was Mercury or your sun, also brings drama with other kids, okay? So it could be other kids who are not behaving, not managing things well, and then their parents kind of getting involved. So let's ask the cards, what does he need to be aware of when it comes to this kid's parents? And does it look like there's going to be a continuation of some problems, or is that going to sort itself out? I always laugh when somebody tells me I'm dealing with a crazy person, and then we get the moon card. I think that would kind of confirm there's some like victim mentality, or, you know, somebody not telling the whole truth or not getting the whole truth in regards to the situation. So obviously you got some pretty heavy cards coming up, two majors, both the moon as well as the death card. It does seem to kind of imply that there is going to be a bit of a back and forth in Scorpio season, which I'm not surprised. I mean, part of it might be the Mercury retrograde. Mercury's always going to deal with your work and your schedule, or going back and forth with other people. And it's going to start the retrograde in the 9th house, which is about how other people communicate with you at school, or in a sense of, you know, an educational, you know, kind of like place. So I would watch for that, because this is basically saying there is going to be a definitive change or a shift in the way that somebody is communicating. Now, I think that this person's already kind of got there's already like a stigma associated with this person or with this person's kid. The moon card could mean, you know, somebody who's acting irrational, you know, they're blowing things out of proportion, they're acting super emotional. You may want to also watch what's going on with the lunations, right? So like, I think is like an Aries rising, you know, the next up and coming full moon that we're going to have is going to be in Aries around the beginning of October. And that's going to oppose the sun in the 7th house. So I do think that that's going to bring up for a lot of like Aries risings that there's going to be a lot of back and forth that you're going to have with other people in terms of, you know, relational things. Could be romantic, could be business. And I also feel like, you know, part of this is linked to what's going on with the transits of the moon. So something I talk about pretty extensively in this week's Astro Weather is I talk about how the moon's going to go through Capricorn. And as it's going through Capricorn for you, it's going to be very work-oriented, It's going to square Mercury in your 7th house, so it's going to bring some relational issues to somebody at work, more so mid to the end of the week. It's going to oppose Jupiter in Cancer, so it's going to make you really emotional and kind of tapped in, and then it's going to square Chiron. Be very careful, okay, leading up to this full moon, how you're communicating and going back and forth with either the kid or going back and forth with the parent. And there is something to be said about the fact that the moon card is saying everybody's kind of like on edge, waiting for something else to happen, knowing that this is like a ticking time bomb, and how things are being relayed back at home, and then how the parent is like reacting is like part of it. You're kind of dealing with like telephone games. So some things can be distorted or they can be manipulated when you're dealing with the moon. Now, right now, you're coming up as the 9 of Swords. So that is the stress, the worry, the anxiety, am I going to deal with them again? Are they going to be coming back? What's going to be changing? I have a really strong suspicion that part of what's going to be happening, and you may see this in either end of October, beginning of November, with this card coming up, that that particular parent, after making, complaints, and I don't necessarily see it being directed towards you. You're not being called out in the cards. It's just saying everybody's kind of on edge, waiting to see when the next kind of shoe is going to drop with this particular family. It's possible there's going to be some interactions that they're going to be having, either with the school or whatever. And there's going to be some kind of letter, or there's going to be something that's going to come up that's going to be like, hey, let's just address this. Let's just get it all out in the open. And they may change the way that they're actually communicating with the parent. Because the 9 of Swords can be saying there is a multitude of people who are involved in the faculty who are like, we don't know how to be around this kid. We don't want to deal with stuff getting back to them. We don't want to deal with stressful communication. We don't want to be getting emails or being threatened by the parent. And the Death card means that there is going to be a definitive change or ending to the way that everybody is kind of communicating with them. So it might be like, look, rather than taking it up with the parents, go directly and kind of go and deal with, the administrative staff, or it's going to have to go directly through somebody who is going to be at a higher level. Because they will be making comments about different people. The 9 of Swords is also reminding you can't stress out about this. You can't worry about something that hasn't happened yet. You can't assume that you're going to be the next victim. It's about not losing sleep over it, because there is going to be a definitive change. And that change very well could be with the Death card that, you might be looking at a kid that's potentially switching school districts or going and, being in a different part of the school, or being with different teachers, or there's going to be some kind of intervention with a counselor or something that has absolutely nothing to do with the teachers. Now, the bottom of the deck is what I'm using for the confirmation card. The confirmation card I get is the Judgment card. So that's another major arcana, and that basically means that there's about to be a major transformation revolving around, once again, the decisions that are being made in regards to this kid. And so I don't know if it's going to be them saying, like I said, hey, you're going to have to go through the administrative staff, or if this is going to continue to be a problem, are we looking at potentially moving our kid? But the situation is going to solve itself, and it's not going to be like a ticking time bomb where, you're going to be going back and forth with the parent and then you're going to get in trouble. I don't see that happening. Saturn is retrograde in your 12th house right now. So it basically means you're kind of hiding out. You're not really kind of getting hit directly if there's any work or relational issues. Obviously, you're still kind of feeding off of the eclipses. So, that will unfold over the next couple of months. But I think that's going to be more adjusting to where you're working now. I don't think it has anything to do with the situation. Do you see me getting in trouble or anything like that? No, I don't, because for me, I think the Moon card coming up with the Death card is kind of saying this is a reoccurring pattern, and we're seeing other people who are having stress or they're worrying about having to deal with these particular parents or family members, and we're putting an end to it, or we're going to be changing the way that we communicate with them. I don't really foresee you being in a situation where you're going to have any real quote unquote issues in the immediate near future, just knowing your astrology. But keep in mind, okay, part of what's going to happen between now and the beginning of next year is, as the Saturn-Neptune conjunction is coming together in February, that's going to be you being put in a situation where you're like, do I like what I'm doing for a living? Do I like where I'm working? Do I feel like I have the support of a superior at work or a boss? Am I feeling victimized by what's going on at work? And when that happens, Mars is going to be the dispositor in Aquarius, and it's going to be in the 11th house. So it's literally going to deal with other people's kids and whether or not other people's kids are behaving, or whether or not they're following the rules. So the only advice I would give you is that you want to treat everybody like an equal. No singling certain kids out, not pulling them aside, not saying anything to them directly in front of the class. If you need to talk to anybody, talk to administrative or talk to a counselor. And obviously, don't stress out about what's going on with this situation, because I feel like the parents are going to keep hitting a wall, feeling like they're not getting the kind of like feedback that they want, and they're going to keep nitpicking. And a lot of it is somehow connected to that kid, and like the kid is either not relaying things appropriately to the parents, or the parents are reacting to things and like they're doing it with different teachers. So you're not getting singled out in this. Stop stressing over something you cannot change. Watch for the change in the way that they're going to be communicating or dealing with the parents, or it may even be that there's a sit down that they have administratively with the parents and really talking about all the issues that they have, and not singling out any one particular like faculty member. It's just going to be an overall kind of, okay, what's the problem? Why do you keep having issues with people? How can we solve this? And sometimes when the death card comes up, it does talk about the emotional or psychological, kind of involvement of the party at hand. So it can also be saying like, well, maybe it's not that, your kid's having issues with all these teachers. Maybe there's an issue going on with the kid. What do we need to do more to kind of help support what's going on with the kid, and like talk to you about how we can kind of overcome this and be a little bit more hands-on and involved. But I actually think that the Judgment card is about basically the bosses or like the administrative staff that's basically making a decision to kind of protect the teachers and being like, no, we're not going to let this continue. So I think you're going to be safe in that regard. Circle back. Let me know what happens. Be very careful with communication this week, especially the latter part of the week. That's when things can get a little intense at work. Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, let's see. Who else do I have? For those of you guys who are just checking in, if you want to get a reading, you can scan the QR code right up there. I've got people like Alana, Adriana, Kimberly, and Vanessa. You guys are all in the queue. Let's see what Alana has to say. What's up, Alana? All right, so Alana's here. She says, I went on 2 dates that gave me the ick and slipped up and talked to my ex. He's a Capricorn sun, Aries moon, Libra rising. Something about that does it for me, but he's mean. I know love is coming, but I feel sad. Oh boy. So he's a Libra rising, Aries moon, Capricorn sun. That's a lot of cardinal energy. And, something to kind of think about is like the Libra rising in him, because Mars has recently been connecting with the South Node. And also there's like this Venus South Node stuff that's happening. Like connecting with the past is not unusual. But yeah, that does sound like somebody who can be a little mean with all that cardinal. So let me see what we can see just in general in regards to what's going on with just dating. Not liking who you've met, and now you're talking to the ex. Watch out with that full moon. That full moon that he's going to have in Aries, which you're a late degree Virgo rising from what I remember. So the full moon's also going to be in your 7th house at the beginning of October. That's going to be a very dynamic time for relationships. And maybe that was the eclipse for you, right? I think the eclipse was right on your ascendant in opposition to Saturn and Neptune. So that could have brought somebody in too. So this is for Alana and what we can tell her about getting the ick and where we see her love life going. All right, in this order, I have got the Empress, the Wheel of Fortune. Is that going to be the card of the evening? And the Knight of Coins. Oh, patience, girl, patience. I feel like good things come to those who wait. That's very much these cards, literally. The Empress card can also be talking about getting advice from like wise women. And so whether that's, talking to an older sister, talking to a best friend, talking to a therapist, like getting a reading, talking to your mom, like something about that connection of having somebody who's going to talk to you about prioritizing your needs first and putting yourself first, and knowing that you can't settle for less. Because when we're dealing with the Empress card, she's about beauty, she's about indulgence, she's about love, she's also about vulnerability and like feeling like you're in a dynamic that's nurturing. And so it can be showing you that if you're really trying to thrive, and if you're trying to be healthier, be happier, have a much more abundant, fulfilling life, you can't be willing to take less than what you deserve. Because if you're bringing people in that are mean, or they're not going to be considerate, or they're not going to be somebody who is kind to you, that's not going to help you build what you're currently trying to build, okay? And obviously in the midst of eclipses, there's a little bit of trying to go forward, but also kind of getting snapped back into the past. I do think that it'll take some time, but you will see with the eclipse that you just had on your ascendant that within 6 to 18 months, it's going to be like a whole new you that's going to emerge. And maybe you start to see that in Sagittarius season. Maybe you start to see that around the eclipses, March of next year. But I feel like there is this like glow up that you're going to be going through with that eclipse, and also with like the Empress card coming up. And it's really saying like finding somebody who treats you the way that you deserve to be treated, and really needing to remind yourself that in order to get to where you want to go, you can't have anybody who's hanging around that's kind of pulling you down. Now, the Wheel of Fortune comes up in the current position. So that means that there is about to be a change in regards to your relationships. And so something to think about is that eclipse sitting on your ascendant was in direct opposition to your 7th house, to your descendant, where you had Saturn, which represents, you know, relationships from the past, or, you know, retrograde people coming back, or, you know, having better boundaries with relationships and other people. I also feel like for a lot of like Virgo risings, it's about going like, well, who am I outside of this relationship? I'm not waiting for people to decide to choose me. I'm not waiting for people to come back. I'm not prioritizing other people's needs over my own. And seeing where there is lack of, with Saturn and Neptune retrograde, self-awareness. And it could also be distance. So, okay, you've had some space away from that guy. From what I remember, you moved cities. You haven't seen each other probably for a little bit. Now you guys reconnect right around the time of the eclipse, and it's meant to give you perspective and be like, okay, do you still want that person, or is that person still kind of stuck in the mud? The Wheel of Fortune wants to go forward, right? This is about saying there's new opportunities, new people coming in, travel opportunities, opportunities to meet people like, you know, out of nowhere, unexpectedly, out of the blue. And it can be talking specifically as you're getting into later in the year. So that midway point from the eclipse that we just had is going to be right around the end of December, when planets are going into Sagittarius and they start squaring, obviously, Virgo and Pisces. That's what you want to watch for. You might still be going back and forth with your ex then. You might be potentially realizing, you know what, this is, you know, this is pointless. There's no point in going back with the past. I'm not moving. They're not moving. I move on. Pay attention to what happens here. And it's generally, it starts in the fixed months. So this could have been something that, you know, maybe you started getting kicked off in July or August when we got to like Leo season. And it's going to go all the way through to Scorpio season, November, December. The Wheel of Fortune also talks about like sometimes what you put out into the universe, what you get back. So this can mean that this is a time where you're going, okay, I'm really focusing on, you know, putting out there the intention of who I'm trying to meet, or what I'm trying to meet, or what it is that I want to be, you know, kind of manifesting in a relationship. And then the final card that I get for you is the Knight of Pentacles. Now, I don't know, obviously he's a Capricorn, so there's that. So it can be talking about him and that being like a slow and steady kind of return that you're getting from Mr. Capricorn, checking in with you, seeing what's going on, what you want. I got to be honest with you. I mean, you know, Saturn rules his 4th house, and you're going to see Saturn fully go into Aries next year. So for a Libra rising, it's going to represent that a relationship can actually really evolve, or it can turn into something more serious if there were to be a serious commitment, 7th house, or potentially moving to be closer with each other. So a lot of Libra risings next year, both in relationships, but also who are single, are going to be realizing that something about the home dynamic, where they're living, how they're living, and relationships are going to be intertwined. So he's going to have a hard time doing a long distance relationship. Like he'll be able to be in one, but he's going to have to bridge the gaps in the distance, and he's going to have to be willing to come and see you, or he's going to have to be willing to move. And so I foresee with the Knight of Pentacles coming up that it can be that this is a slow process of him coming back around. But once again, remember what I told you about what you can and cannot have around you. It can also be an indication that there's another like earth sign that's like hanging around that's going to come in. This could be a Virgo, could be a Capricorn, can be a Taurus. Obviously, as like a late degree Virgo, right? And you've got Capricorn in your 5th house, Capricorns, Tauruses, Virgos, they're going to resonate well with you. I think the reason why you like this guy is because he's got his moon in your 7th house, right? He's got his sun in your 4th house. But all that cardinal energy does not work as well when you have a lot of mutable in your chart, which means it's changeable and flexible. Things will get better. You have to wait until Saturn and Neptune go direct and they come off of your descendant. So I think you're really going to be seeing that there's more forward motion in relationships that are going to be setting up for you like December, January, February. And when Saturn and Neptune are off of that 29 degrees, you're not going to see somebody who's in and out, confused, not sure what they want, and you may still see some kind of finale in a relationship. Nights coming up with the Wheel of Fortune can also indicate travel. So it's like you might go back and forth and you might talk with him for a little bit, but you might get to a point where you're like, what are we doing here? What's the point? Are you coming to see me? Are you trying to, make something out of this? Or are you trying to, have a relationship? Like what's the point? And maybe that needs to be said so that way you can see realistically whether or not he's actually interested. And even if he it doesn't matter if he is or he isn't, I would be holding out with that Wheel of Fortune and the Knight of Pentacles for somebody who is going to be patient, who's going to be kind, they're going to be considerate, they're going to be generous, not necessarily with money, but usually Knight of Pentacles, this is the guy who shows up and goes, hey, I brought you some lunch, or I've got you some flowers, or I got you this trinket, or I was thinking about you. They have to bring something to the table. They'll have something to offer you. So it's saying wait until you have somebody come in that's going to be having something that's beneficial for you or something that is going to be valuable to you. And you'll know because they're going to be kind of like a slow burn. It's not going to be something that's going to happen quickly. If you had Six of Cups, if you had, other reunion type cards, I'd be like, you can give this guy a shot, but I'm really thinking that it's going to be someone else. And if you are still going back and forth with him, like I said, pay attention to the full moon. That's going to be the beginning of October. And also watch for the fact that for you guys to actually work in the future, he's going to have to be willing to get outside of his routine. So if you guys broke up because you moved, look, you're not going back. That's not going to be happening anytime soon unless you, do something wild during the Mercury retrograde in November and you decide that you're going to move or that you're, going to make a change in your living situation. I'd be more inclined to say, maybe that's a time that he decides he's going to come visit you. But the heat will get turned up in a very big way next year. And the only way he's going to be able to be in a relationship is if there's a change in the living situation. So watch for some of those time periods. Keep an eye out for somebody new. And remember, like I said, you're going to be getting some advice or you're going to be having to look at yourself in a different perspective and focusing on moving forward and the new things that are to come. Don't get sucked into some of the inertia of the past under some of these retrogrades and the eclipses. Good luck. All right, so for those of you guys who are just popping in, we're still taking readings. If you guys want to get readings, you can scan the QR code right up there and get in the queue. I've got Adriana and Kimberly. What's up, Adriana? How's it going? All right, she says, my husband is a Cancer rising, Virgo sun, Scorpio moon, looking for a job change. When will that happen? All right, well, let's take a look. He's kind of getting hit all across the board, right? Like the Virgo sun is dealing with like Uranus and Gemini, so you're going to hear for their horoscope, changes at work. The Cancer rising, certainly with Saturn and Neptune going retrograde, or have been going retrograde through their 10th house, changes on the horizon. And then the Scorpio moon, well, they're always going through changes, but the retrogrades this year has definitely been interesting for Leo placements. So he's kind of getting hit all across the board. So let's take a look. I would say intuitively, I would keep an eye on the early October period when there's like a full moon in his 10th house in Aries. I would also pay attention for the Cancer risings because Mercury will turn retrograde in the 6th house, and that can be if you're not working, then maybe going back to work, and that'll be mid-November-ish. So let's ask the tarot, what do we need to know about Adriana's husband? He's looking for a job. When will that job change happen? Well, rather swiftly, apparently. 8 of Wands. That can be about 8 weeks. Specifically, the timing that's on this card is about the end of November to early December. But I think it's interesting because the Mercury retrograde literally is going to start, I think, right around mid-November. It's going to go right to the end of the month. And if you're not working during a retrograde in the 6th house, it can bring you back into work. And so what I do like about this is that when the retrograde happens, it's going to come into Scorpio in the 5th house. That's going to trine Saturn. So like a lot of Cancer risings will be finding they're going to find jobs that's going to issue training or they can travel for work. Some Cancer risings may be considering certifications or going back to school, in order to further their skills to start something new next year under the Saturn-Neptune transit. I would also look at his transits that he's also having with his natal Jupiter and his natal Mars, because Jupiter rules the 6th house of daily routine, Mars rules the 10th house. And then I also think about just the cardinal signs this week. We're going to see a lot of squares to Jupiter. And so it almost seems like for me, if I were a Cancer rising, you know, just thinking about what's kind of going on with Jupiter and Mercury, a lot of Cancer risings are going to be very anxious about, you know, being like, where am I going to find a job? What's going to happen? You know, like, what am I going to do? Right. And there's going to be a lot of back and forth with communication with family or communication with the spouse. Mercury obviously in Libra in the 4th house squaring Jupiter. So it is giving him time to kind of ground out, get things done at home, recenter himself, talk to family, get some stuff done, perhaps maybe work on some odds and ends and be active and be busy. And when you come out of the square, which is going to be at the end of the week, then he's going to be a little bit more, I think, open-minded to, okay, now I can kind of get back into the swing of things. But long story short, 8 of Wands is generally within about 2 months, 8 weeks. So look to things kind of turning around specifically because of the card and the timing right around the latter part of November. I think that's when you're really going to kind of see that, literally 8 weeks from now. So let me know what happens. He's very determined, right? 8 of Wands is like, it's not lack of trying. It's not that he doesn't want to work. It's not that he's not looking. He's putting a lot of energy into it. And he might almost feel like he's just like throwing everything at the wall. He's like, I'm applying to anything and everything that I think I could do or anything that I would be willing to do at this point. So just tell him not to burn himself out. And he may also find that there could be job opportunities that could come in very quickly that could definitely ensure that he's going to be employed. But it might also mean that he's worried about work and he takes something on too quickly. And then he's like, oh, then I heard back from this job after I accepted something and I've already started this, but I could have done that. Like, tell him to pump the brakes a little bit. Obviously, I know a lot of Cancer risings are going to be super hyper-focused on work the next couple of weeks, but make sure that he's going after something he really wants to do and he's not just taking something because he has fear of not being able to have a job, okay? Hopefully that's helpful. Hope he gets that employment dust his way. Hey, Red Druidess. Thanks, guys, for letting me know that the stream is good. Sometimes we have some glitches. What's up, JM? Just tuning in. Well, happy Friday. I've got Kimberly and Vanessa who are next on my list. All right, let's see what Kimberly has to say. Kimberly says, hey, Candace, solo card. I'm a Leo sun, Pisces rising, Scorpio moon. What don't I see coming? All right, well, you are very welcome. Let's take a look and see what we can tell Kimberly. What does she not see coming? I would imagine as a Pisces rising, there's been a lot of things that have been shocking or surprising or dissolving over the last couple of weeks with these eclipses. But the Scorpio moon can handle it, right? All right, this one, of course. Man, the tarot's sassy tonight. As I was talking about your Pisces rising, I got the Hangman for you. I feel like we need a confirmation card. Judgment again. Well, I mean, here's the thing. The eclipses are over, but there's still stuff that's shaking out. And there is a sense of things shaking out until we get to the next full moon, right? Which isn't going to be until, like, I think the 5th or the 6th of October. What you're not seeing is that this is still a time of pause and reflection. Like, I feel like you're still waiting for the dust to settle. Obviously, as a Pisces rising, you're seeing that the South Node, you know, and the eclipses have been moving through your 7th house, which is bringing some pretty definitive changes to your relationships with other people. Could be clients, could be romantic partners, could be business partners. It could be just changing and kind of clearing out the way that you look at relationships. And you could be feeling like there are some people who are really going through it. And it's making you pull your energy back. Like, I look at the North Node in the 1st house, it's like putting your oxygen mask on first. I look at Saturn and Neptune being in the 1st house of being like, who am I? Where am I going? What do I want? And like, they're both retrograde. I also feel like, you know, in the opposition of Saturn and Neptune to that eclipse, it's a lot of you going, that's other people's stuff. I don't want to get hit with it. You know, I need to take time to like pause and reflect and detach and like really reassess where I'm going. And there's this really confusing kind of theme for a lot of Pisces risings right now where they're like, I'm certainly not who I used to be, but I don't know who I'm going to be yet. And I feel like I'm in limbo. And that's the Hangman card. That's about kind of being like, all right, I have to take time to think things over. Don't get too comfortable there, right? We know that, Saturn and Neptune are going to change signs in the new year, and they're going to leave Pisces, and it's going to go into Aries, and that's going to be about building stronger self-esteem. I feel like what you don't know or what you don't see coming, and also like the Hangman is about getting perspective. It's about kind of tuning in, and whether that's getting a reading or meditating or doing dream interpretation, or maybe it's going to be about you kind of going, my gut's telling me something. I don't know, something's coming. What is it? You need more time alone to really integrate and kind of marinate on some of that stuff. Because I feel like if you get that time, you're going to be so much more tapped in. Because the Hangman, because he has this kind of, suspended, kind of inverted, perspective, he has that glow around his head. It's enlightenment. Because why? He's been able to kind of see the other side. So maybe that means that you're kind of looking at things going like, well, what would my life look like if I did this instead of that? Or I was doing this work instead of that work? Or if I navigated this way instead of that way? Or I was by myself instead of in that relationship? Like, you're asking yourself these questions because there's a possibility that there's getting ready to be some forks in the road. And the more that you're taking time to kind of listen to that and like really reassess before you make decisions, I think the better you're going to be guided. The positive silver lining, I would say, for Pisces risings is that you have Jupiter in Cancer. So it's like really saying, okay, what's going to make you the happiest? Like, what do you want in your love life? What do you want to create? How could you create more playtime? How can you have a happier house and home kind of situation, Cancer? And only you know what needs to stay and what needs to go. And so right now, I think this is the time, especially the next couple of months with some of the trines, to do some soul searching and really ask yourself, what changes do I need to make? And also, a lot of it can be about being patient. The Hangman feels like you can't actually move forward because you're waiting for certain things to kind of shake out, but you're going to start to see a little bit more clarity, and that may come from traveling opportunities that'll happen in the fall. Anything that's going to be reflective, so meditation, time alone in nature, anything like that, like you will feel like the answers are coming through so clearly. Even though you know it's not time to act yet, you're going to start feeling like initiating some of this stuff when these planets start going direct, which is going to be later in the fall. But your gut knows, girl. Your gut knows. So let me know how you're doing with some of those transits. And the Hangman can be a good card for you to kind of marinate on. What's up, Robbie? How's it going? Readings are still open if you guys want to get in the queue. I've got Vanessa, who is up next. And then Joseph, Cassidy, and Bobby Joe. What's up, Vanessa? Vanessa says, we put in an offer on a house. Do you see us getting it or getting another one? Good question. Let's take a look. All right, so let's take a look. Vanessa put in this offer. Is she going to get the home? Aren't you a Cancer rising too? I feel like you are, right? Cancer rising, Virgo sun. You got a lot of Libra in your 4th house. Let's take a look. All right, is she gonna get this house? What is it looking like? Gemini rising. All right, let's take a look. So in this order, 4 of Coins, 8 of Cups, Queen of Coins. All right, so 4 of Coins makes me feel like it's gonna drive a hard they're gonna drive a hard bargain. And I don't know if this is about them being like, look, this is what we're asking, and you coming forward and being like, this is what we're willing to give you. It's gonna be this or nothing. There's nothing here that's saying it's like a slam dunk that you're gonna get the house. Pisces sun, Gemini moon, and rising. Okay, so the eclipses are what's happening in your 4th house. The Pisces sun is kind of more feeding off of what's going on in, let's see, your 10th? Yeah. So my thought is, with the 4 of Coins, there's going to be some challenges revolving around getting what you want. This is a card that's like somebody going, I want this, and you're like, I'll give them that, and they'll be like, no dice. So off the bat, it's a competitive market that you're going into. I don't think that you're going to be the only one potentially making an offer, or this is going to represent them really thinking it over, deciding whether or not they're willing to accept it, especially with what you're offering them. I would also say just be careful going too far over your price range with what you're willing to kind of pay for this house, because the Four of Coins means that you're gonna have to give something up, or you're gonna have to make some kind of concessions. So whether that's more money, or you're gonna have to be willing to like negotiate with them on like the closing fees. Eight of Cups is about walking away from a situation. So if it ends up being a back and forth where they're like, look, we've got somebody else, they've offered more than what you've offered. Do you want to match that, or do you want to offer more? We're going to give you the opportunity to do that. You might be like, no, we're good. We're not going to do that. Be very, very careful about what you're willing to spend on your house right now, especially knowing that, if you're a Gemini rising, part of what's happening is there are eclipses that are moving through your 4th house. And you're going to see Venus go through the 2nd house. Venus is going to go through your 4th house South Node transit. So in this next week, it could literally mean, oh, we had an opportunity and it slipped between our hands, but that's okay. We're going to keep looking, Eight of Cups, and we're going to move on. So are you going to be disappointed? Yeah. Are you going to be super hung up on it? I don't think so. The Queen of Coins makes me feel a lot better about something else that's coming. Like, if this were not to work out, or if you can't strike a deal with them, you're going to end up finding something else that I think is not only going to be a better deal, but you're going to probably like it more. Or you're going to feel like it's going to be something more aesthetically pleasing, and you don't have to make any sacrifices like you would with this situation. I would assume you're probably going to get your answer here right around... I would say sometime around the 30th of September. And then you're going to also have something else that's going to be like right around the 3rd of October. Those are the dates that you're going to want to watch. I'm looking at where the moon moves, but yeah, I'm not convinced that you're going to get this. And the off chance that they do try to make a deal with you, be very careful with what you're willing to give up, what sacrifices you're making, how much more money you're willing to spend. And I think you're ultimately going to look at it and you're going to go, nope, it's okay. You know what? We're going to move on. We're going to find something else. And I don't know who the Queen of Coin is. So I don't know if that's you working with a realtor, or if that's going to be you buying a house with another family member, or somebody who's giving you some kind of like financial advice, or somebody who is like helping you with the process of being able to qualify for a loan, or helping you put a down payment on something. But this is somebody who's going to be wise and being like, look, if this is what you wanted, we could get something else that's just going to be, just as good in a similar area, and you're going to get more bang for your buck. And they're going to try to convince you to potentially take your money elsewhere, or to be really thinking about, before you make this long-term investment, other options and other pathways to being able to get a home. Yes, working with a realtor and getting one with my husband. So, it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, but, the Queen of Coins generally is a woman. And realtors are going to tell you whatever they want to tell you to try to sell a house. It doesn't matter what's going on with the house or what's going on with the economy. But I do think that it's going to be somebody who is going to be talking to you about long-term values and what you're putting into something versus what you're getting out of it. And if you're potentially getting into a situation where long-term you could have something that could be a lot more valuable if you're willing to put a little bit of money or a little bit of effort into something. So I wonder if they're going to talk to you about being like, look, we can get you into a house that's going to be cheaper. It's going to be more in your budget. You may have to replace some floors. You might have to do some, odds and ends things. But like in the long run, it's going to end up saving you money versus buying something like right off the bat. So she'll talk to you about kind of making your money go further. So don't worry about it if you don't get the house. I do think that you'll be disappointed, but I do think that you're going to move on, because the Eight of Cups is like, okay, we didn't get it. What's next, right? And you're going to see that the market's going to change quite a bit. I mean, we're going to see Mars in Scorpio. We're going to see trines to Jupiter in Cancer. That's the housing market. We're going to see Saturn and Neptune that are going back into Pisces. So I think a lot of people are going to start to see that the market's actually opening up the next 2 or 3 months. So don't be in a rush unless you absolutely have to get something. Really give yourself time, I would say, over like the next 4 to 8 weeks to see what else is out there, because this falling through, if it falls through, looks like it's going to provide you with a much better option. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Good luck with finding your home. I've got Joseph. What is the name of the deck that I am using? Do I have the box here? Click the links in my description below. There's a link that says my book list, and it'll take you to my Amazon list. So if I ever have a tarot deck, or if I ever have a book that I'm using or anything like that, it'll take you to my Amazon storefront and you can buy it. But I know it's like a beginner's tarot deck that I have linked on Amazon. All right, so we got Joseph here. What's up, Joseph? Joseph says, hey, Candace, my friend's boyfriend of 6 years unexpectedly passed away the day of the solar eclipse in an industrial accident. I'm sorry to hear that. He had a near-death experience in March skiing where he got a head injury but survived. My friend thought he was cursed because the glass shattered when he touched it and other bad things happened to him. He ended up dying from a head injury in the factory almost instantly, and I'm wondering, was he really cursed? Did he perhaps pass in a skiing accident in a parallel reality? Or am I just looking for answers that have no logical answer? Thank you and sorry for the dark question. My friend who lost her boyfriend is a Pisces sun, Cancer rising, and an Aquarius Venus at 1 degree. I like dark questions. Maybe it's just the Scorpio in me. Sorry to hear that he passed. Logically, okay, so let's play astrological detective here. Your friend is a Cancer rising, okay? So that means that Saturn rules their 7th house because their 7th house of relationships is Capricorn. Well, Saturn has been in and out of Aries and also Pisces. But recently, Saturn was conjunct Neptune the last couple of months in Aries, okay? Head injuries, Aries. And the 10th house deals with your friend's career, but it's also their status. So things like, okay, her job changing maybe, or, you know, the retrogrades or maybe changes going on, you know, in regards to her relationship status, or having to be there to kind of tend to a partner and feeling responsible because they're suffering some injuries. But the 10th house is actually 4th house from the 7th. So that means that it can represent ends of situations, including death, for partners. Not a lot of people know that. So I look at, okay, there's been a Saturn-Neptune conjunction brewing. He had an accident in, you know, some place where he was skiing. Saturn is cold, you know, Aries is the head, so he had an injury. And then he has an injury at work. But the biggie for me is that their Venus in Aquarius is in the 8th house. And the Venus deals with, sure, money, you know, pleasure, you know, but it's also relationships. And Pluto represents boyfriends, and Pluto has been in conjunction to Venus in the 8th house, which could represent a dramatic, shocking ending of a relationship, something traumatic, some freak accident, Aquarius, where somebody potentially passes. Obviously, this is just all talking about that person's chart, right? I don't have the degrees. I don't even have the boyfriend's chart or any information on that, but it's very... It's common to see sometimes when there is a transit over Venus in the 8th house that there are some darker things that can kind of be coming up in relationships, right? A lot of people say, well, for something to be cursed, we need to see a Pluto aspect, we need to see a Saturn aspect, we need to see a Neptune aspect. All three are there. Pluto's on her Venus, ending of a relationship, tragedy, sextile Saturn and Neptune in Aries, change of her relationship status, loss of the partner. And there could be things going on with her progressions, you know, and things like that as well. So let's take a look at what the cards say. You know, is it possible that that was inevitable? I mean, I've seen a couple charts of people through the last 10, 12 years, and I can think about 5 people off the top of my head that have had stories like that. They're like, I had a head injury at work, and then I got in a car accident, and then I broke my leg, and, you know, I had a near-death experience, and I came back. And so most of them were people who lived through it, but they had several situations, and usually it's when they were having hard aspects going on in their progress chart or involving their 8th house lord, and they just weren't getting the message. But let's see, is there something that we're missing? Was the friend's boyfriend really cursed? What is the deal with that? I like your question about did they die in an alternate or parallel universe? Very interesting. Oof. Ace of Cups. 6 of Swords. 10 of Swords. Not so much to do with the boyfriend, more to do with your friend. You know, I think a lot of people will agree, like when you go through a Venus-Pluto transit, you either encounter a relationship that is dealing with some really dark things, or there could be intensity, or there could be, you know, transformation, there could be death, there could be endings. But the general overall theme is like something is removed and it's very painful. And so really what the tarot is saying, it's like, well, you can't really argue with the fact that she was supposed to have a situation where she was in a relationship and then there was somebody that leaves. Okay, that was inevitable. It's also talking about the fact that there was some kind of like fulfillment. Okay, so if you believe in this stuff, and this is kind of my philosophy, is like we come here, we have a set list of things that we're here to do. Our soul has several different exit strategies. We don't ever really know when they're going to happen. It could be when we're, 6 months old. It could be when we're 100, right? And when we have completed what we've come here to do, and then that kind of interlocks with one of the exits, we go. One of the things he was meant to do is he was supposed to come here. He was supposed to have love. He was supposed to have a relationship, Ace of Cups. He was supposed to have that really intense, loving, dramatic union. He was supposed to feel that. To me, it seems like your friend fulfilled a lot of that purpose. And it was like, cool, he got that. That's what he was supposed to have. And then he was out. And the Six of Swords is also talking about like him being reluctant to leave. Like this is a card that deals with being half in, half out. It's literally about the river of six. As you're crossing over to the other side, you go to, you go through the bardo and then you go and leave the body and you go to the other side. And when the Six of Swords comes up, it's like he already kind of transitioned and then he came back. And so the second go round with the Ten of Swords coming up is saying, unfortunately, it was a much more painful, much more definitive, a little bit more brutal in a sense of like the ending and the completion that he had to go through. It is also kind of playing off of what you were saying about alternate realities. So like I do believe in string theory. I do think that we make decisions and there can be alternate realities and dimensions and things that are connected to it. And so as they start to play out, it can actually have like a reverb effect that can affect us in this lifetime, at least the path that we're the most aware of, that's most illuminated. And I think that it was his time to go, even though he was young or it was kind of shocking, or maybe a lot of people didn't think that, it was possible, but like he was supposed to go and he didn't make the decision to actually stay the first time around. So he came a little bit longer, he was able to come back, but like ultimately the Ten of Swords is saying, this is that definitive turning point. Like this is saying there is no return, you're not supposed to come back, your time is done, like this is the completion. And it's also saying that it was something that was like really difficult, because I feel like, I don't know if he told you that he was having, some kind of, near-death experience, or he saw something, or he had the opportunity to leave or to stay, but he came back. And so the Ten of Swords literally says, definitive endings, release, transformation, and, moving on. This is about, a dead end and feeling exhausted. So she says, there we go. It's crazy that he almost died from a head injury in March, and then he died from a head injury on the solar eclipse. Crazy. He had Sun opposite Pluto in his progress chart. There you go. And so he was 28 and he was in his Saturn return. So it's like, all right, there's something to be said about, being 27, 28, going through your progressed lunar return and then having your Saturn return. There's a reason why a lot of people will transition between 27 and 29. That's a whole other can of worms. But the opposed Sun-Pluto opposition, the signs and the houses would be very interesting to me. And if it's having any correlation to the 10th house or to the 7th house or to the 8th house, completion of a relationship, completion at work, that kind of stuff, but the progressions will show that to you. And yeah, Sun, Pluto, or any opposition of like heavy hitter outer planet, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto, Uranus, can be particularly challenging, especially in the progress chart. But I think it was his time to go, and it looks like he came and he fulfilled the relationship stuff that he needed to fulfill, or needed to feel love in some sense, companionship, and then it was time for him to go. So I'm sorry to hear that. Cursed, not so much. Mission completed, a little bit more likely. Hopefully that was helpful for you. All right, we got Cassidy, Bobby Joe, Robbie, Christina. You guys are all in the queue. All right, so let's see what Cassidy says. Hey, Candace, I guess I would like a general reading. I am a Taurus rising with a Virgo sun and a Capricorn moon. Earth Mama. Let's take a look. Let me see what we can tell you. How have you been doing with those eclipses? All that Virgo energy in your 5th house. Lots of, creative breakthroughs. Emotional healing, changes with your love life, because it's all aspecting other things in your chart. Let's take a look and let's see what we can tell Cassidy. I've got the 5 of Swords, the Page of Swords, and the 3 of Wands. I don't know why, but I kind of get the vibe from some of this stuff that you're like, there are some things that you're no longer waiting on, or you're no longer willing to kind of entertain. Maybe that's because of the 5 of Swords energy that's kind of coming up. You know, this can mean that, you know, there can be some feelings of being rejected or feeling unfulfilled, or, you know, not getting your needs met, or feeling frustrated that you're trying to express yourself or trying to connect with someone or trying to connect with people. And it's like, no matter what you do, it's just not working. And so naturally when planets, I think, go through your 5th house, especially with the South Node, there can be a sense of, I used to love this, but I don't love this anymore, you know, or I used to really enjoy this hobby. Like, why did I stop doing it? Or I used to really, you know, like have a strong connection with this person and it's just not coming together. So with the 5 of Swords coming up as the first card, it talks about that there can be, you know, working through conflict. It also talks about, you know, that there is some stagnant energy, and maybe there's been some disputes, or maybe there's been a feeling of not feeling loved, or not feeling like creatively fulfilled, and you're getting frustrated with some of that stuff that's been kind of happening. This week, Venus is going to go through there, so you're going to want to watch that, being a Taurus rising, because you're going to have the opportunity to kind of finally heal. It could be childhood issues, could be insecurities. And the Page of Swords comes up. So it talks about something coming online where you have the opportunity to start expressing yourself creatively, more directly. It could be a new creative hobby, something that involves writing, something that involves speaking. And pages represent, you know, studying something or learning something new. It can also be about younger people, or in this case, it could be air signs. So Geminis, Libras, you know, Aquariuses can kind of pop in. And the Page of Swords tells me that this is about you finding a way to kind of speak more from the heart, and not feeling like you have to be perfect, not feeling like, you know, you're going to be criticized or judged by other people. You know, pages are kind of childlike in a way. So it's getting in touch with that inner child. It's getting in touch with that inner creator, that artistic kind of ability. And maybe it means that you're studying or you're learning new hobbies or new things to better express yourself. This can also mean that you're really focusing on talking about where you're going, not where you've been, right? And so pages teach us that we have to do something new. 3 of Wands coming up as the final card talks about, well, it's about not just talking about doing something, doing it. Oh, I've always wanted to get, you know, I wanted to get back into doing this hobby, or I've always wanted to learn how to play an instrument. I've always wanted to travel to this place. You're like, I'm not waiting around anymore, and I'm not going to be waiting for other people to join in, or having some sense of disappointment or feeling unfulfilled. I'm going to go and start doing things that are going to make me happy. I'm not waiting for others to do it. Certainly a lot of Taurus risings, I think, are a little bit under pressure with some of like the Mars, Pluto squares that are kind of happening. So whether there is a sense of there being a lot of pressure at work, or there is a lot of back and forth going on with relationships, I would say turn within, especially over like the next month or two, and you start having a full moon in your 12th house and then one in your sign. And it's going to be about traveling, studying, spiritual practices. There is going to be this energy also of you going, okay, I'm visualizing things before it happens. I'm telling myself I'm going to go on this trip. I'm going to start manifesting. I'm going to start planning it, and then I'm going to go. There's like this warrior spirit archetype that's starting to wake up for a lot of Taurus risings. And that's because of that Aries energy that's kind of moving through your 12th house. She says, yes, I felt frustrated, alone, and stagnant. So rather than focusing on the problem, because that could be very much the 5 of Swords, kind of, you know, you're a fixed rising sign hitting your head against a wall, especially with all that earth. It's very, let's do things practically, logically. Aries is not that. Aries is starting things that you don't know if you're going to finish, which is going to drive the Capricorn in you crazy and the Virgo in you crazy too. And both of those signs don't jive well, right, with Virgo. It doesn't see Virgo, and it doesn't jive well with Capricorn. It squares Capricorn. But you can, on your own time, by yourself, within the 12th house, you could travel, you could work out, you could have a private space that you're doing creative projects in. You can start focusing and kind of planning, you know, what you're going to be doing over the next 2 years. It'd be a really good time for you to start thinking about either a practice, a study, or a place that you want to travel to, because that's all like that combination of 12th house, 9th house energy. I also feel like Saturn is going back into your 11th house. So for a lot of Tauruses, it's like you got to find your tribe, right? And that tribe might be online. That tribe might be friends that live in a different city. That tribe might be people that you go and you meet at a conference, or somebody that you meet at something that's going to be artistic or creative. But you don't have to be alone. And the more that you're actually leaning into some of the new tribe and social opportunities and connections that are going to be popping up over the next couple of months, the better off you're going to be next year, because that's really when the kind of isolation and kind of being on your own is going to kind of set in. But it could also very much mean that you're connecting with private groups, you're going to be traveling with friends, or you're doing things a little bit more reserved. Start planning this stuff now. That's my advice. And I love that the Three of Wands is a card that talks about momentum building, confidence, expansion, growth, right? Foresight, and also looking ahead. Where do you see yourself in about 3 months? 3 months to about 6 months is like the Three of Wands. And what are you getting in order now, so that way you're not feeling more isolated and separated alone next year when Saturn and Neptune inevitably go into your 12th. Also, Taurus risings are going to have like a crazy amount of work over the next like year, with like Pluto fully being in your 10th house. So you're going to see there's lots of transformation either to your relationship or your status at work. And I think that this is a wonderful time to be looking at what you're doing in your off time and your downtime, and not feeling like you have to wait for other people to join you. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Certainly heard from a lot of Taurus risings. Let me know if you end up having some kind of breakthrough creatively this week. I would imagine a lot of Taurus risings might have that. All right, so we have got Bobby Joe, Robbie, and Christina. What's up, Bobby Joe? They say 1 card, please. I'm a Pisces Sun, Sag Moon, Libra rising. I'd love to know what you see coming for me. All right, let's take a look. Ooh. Well, obviously, it's like a Libra rising. You know, having had Saturn and Neptune in your 7th house, that's a lot of relational energies. This is a combination of like the Aries stuff. So like Saturn is retrograding back into Pisces, right? So as like a Pisces sun in your 6th house, it's going to be like how you're getting down to business, right? I can only imagine having Saturn in your 6th house and having Saturn in the same sign as your sun. That's a lot of health, organization, work, like showing up and like taking care of business, being the boss. Can also mean that you're dealing with a lot of stuff revolving around work and responsibility. And whether that's making sure that you're staying on task, or if that's dealing with bosses, or that could mean that you're kind of leveling up at work, like all that stuff can happen. And when Saturn finally kind of leaves your sign in the new year, you get a reprieve in that regard, where all of the hard work and dedication is going to pay off. Work-wise as well as health-wise, you're going to feel like you're on top. I could also see this being about how Saturn and Neptune has briefly been in your opposite sign, right? Aries, if you're a Libra rising, and it's kind of showing you where now the next several years is going to be about issuing new boundaries in like relationships. And so I'm kind of on the fence on that. I know that Saturn does very well in the 6th house, where even though it's annoying and you can get work done, it's a lot easier to deal with in the 7th, where you have to face problems head on. And so Aries is connected to the Emperor, right? So your relationship with a partner, your relationship with clients, your relationship maybe with your job, and really feeling like, oh, okay, the next 2 years, it's all going to be about relation matters and like home and boundary stuff that's going to come up with partnerships. I also think, you know, you have an up and coming full moon. That's going to be in Aries at the beginning of October. So a lot of Libra and Libra risings are going to find that it is going to be showing you some kind of dynamic between you and another person, with the sun in your sign and the moon in the 7th house, that, you know, it's a relationship conclusion or completion, or there is a turning point going on with relationships, or somebody significant that you're going to meet. This could be a therapist, it could be a coach, it could be a client, it could be a romantic partner. If you're in a relationship, it could be about what's going on with your partner. And Mars is the ruler, which is going through your 2nd house. So Libra risings are going to find that the next month is going to be about taking stock in what you do want in relationships, and really investing yourself in people who are going to bring you security. And whether that's time, energy, emotions, what have you, I think the Emperor coming up is kind of signaling, hey, there's a lot of like relationship things going on in your chart. And I have kind of seen, just with Libra risings and being a Libra rising myself, some of that Saturn Neptune going into Aries is kind of showing you like where you're not aligning yourself with the right people, or if there are some relational issues going on, the impact that it has on your health, your habits, and your routine. And that's all in preparation for, you know, for next year. Watch Mars. Mars is going through your money house. It might mean that you're feeling like you have to kind of talk to people about what's going on with your money and your resources, but this is a time of really bossing up, I think, in a very big way. And I would say enjoy Saturn while it's in the 6th house. I don't know about you, but like I was like just doing nothing but complaining about Saturn in the 6th house until Saturn went into the 7th, and I was like, please go back into the 6th house. I'll work all day, anything but dealing with Saturn in the 7th house, you know. So it's time to take care of business, and then you're going to be on to bigger kind of relational things, I think, as you're getting into the new year. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Bobby Joe. We still have readings open. We're going to call last call pretty soon. So if you guys want to get in, go ahead and get in. I've got Robbie, Christina, Felicia, Joanne, Aliyah or Aaliyah? Aaliyah? So we're going to call last call, guys. Go ahead and jump in there. All right. So what's up, Robbie? Thanks, Joanne. I got you. Robbie says, Aquarius sun, Cancer rising, Aries moon, just a general what's coming up for me. Man, listen to my astro weather on Sunday because there's a lot of lunar aspects that are going to happen this week for Cancer rising, where the moon is going to go through Capricorn. So it's going to be really showing you and kind of highlighting in a very big way your relationships. Okay, so it could be your relationship to your boss. It could be your relationship to a partner or some relationship dynamic that's setting up. And the moon is going to oppose Jupiter in your sign, which is going to make you feel emotional. And it's going to come into a square with Chiron in your 10th house. So it's going to be relational issues taking place at work. And it's like, are we working together? Are we working against each other? And then it's going to start opposing Mercury in your 4th, which basically means that how you respond to things this week is going to dictate where you're living, who you're working with, and how your relationships are going. And it's all going to go ping, 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 and it's going to light your chart up like a Christmas tree. The key here is that we want to lean more into, you know, Libra planets that are going to be trining, you know, Pluto in your 8th house where your Aquarius sun is. So it's a lot of talking about money stuff, what I'm getting, what I'm paying for, you know, rent and cost of living, and like dealing with business partners' money. And you're also going to see that it's going to trine Uranus in Gemini, which is going to bring up themes where you're like, okay, you know, things are changing. I'm now seeing that money's coming in, and now I'm talking to my family about how I'm getting out. I'm socializing. I'm connecting with people. But it's going to be a very busy week. So let's take a look and see. I know Jupiter being in your sign is going to be helping you be a little bit more optimistic and open to the idea of like focusing on health and habits, especially organization and routine is going to be a big theme, I think, throughout this transit all year. And the card that you get is the Two of Cups. So not only, I think, is it about working together, right? Because, I mean, that's a lot of like the moon transit through your 7th house this week. It's how can we, you know, find ways to find a solution? How can we sit down and have a meeting? How can we connect with clients or with guests? But it can be relational as well, right? Two of Cups is the relationship card. So it's people coming in saying, can I work with you? Do you want to go out to dinner? You know, can we do something? Can you call me back? And for a lot of Cancer risings, there's going to be a lot of like buzz around family. So you're going to be talking to mom, talking to sisters, talking to people about things that are kind of going on at home and going back and forth with them. And part of the squares and the oppositions is going to be you going like, okay, I'm far away, I'm not nearby, but how can I show people that I'm there for them, and vice versa. If you're going through some changes at home or with work, you'll want to feel like you can call a sibling. You're going to want to feel like you can call mom and be like, hey, this is what's happening. And what you'll find is that connection of being like, we may not be near each other, but like, I'm here for you. Or, you know, they're saying, I'm here for you. What do you need? What can I give you? Accept the offers that are coming your way. Okay, and whether that's somebody saying, hey, let me help you out, let me give you something, or let me call you, or, you know, do you want to vent for a little bit? And obviously the Two of Cups can be really positive for relationships as well. I think that you're going to see a lot of turning points for relationships that are going to be happening, especially like Scorpio season. So like October to November, you have retrogrades in your 5th house that can be about getting back into dating. You're also going to see Jupiter and Saturn trining over the fall. So there could be opportunities to meet people through traveling or be meeting and dating people who might be living in other areas, and you're kind of going back and forth a little bit, right? But yeah, watch for that. And the Two of Cups, obviously, in a relationship sense, is about meeting new people, But also in career, it's about cooperation and balance and being able to kind of mediate, and some new kind of potential financial changes that could be kind of happening as well. And hopefully that's helpful for you, Robin. Keep me updated. All right, I've got Christina and Felicia. You guys are popping up next. What's up, Naderade? How do I get on? I'm a new member and QR code takes me to PayPal. Do I have to pay again? Well, let me check my memberships and let me see what level member you are and see if you're level. Well, let me just see what level you are. But if you're a new member, if you're level 4 membership, you get a reading. Current level 4. Yeah. You joined 4 days ago. So if you're a level 4 member, you can get your reading for the month. Send me your question and I'll put you in the queue. And I'll take you in just a few. So just send your question. So I'll take Christina and then Nate, if you're ready. Let's see. If you're a member, you don't have to pay. So I've got Christina, Felicia, Joanne, and Aaliyah. So you shouldn't have to pay for another reading. You should have, I already have you as my level 4 member. Thanks, Rob. You're welcome. So Nate, just send me your question and I'll get you in the queue here soon. May I wait until astrology next week? You can, but one thing I will tell you is that next week is going to be a new month. So you can get a reading now, and if you're a member next month, next week, you can get a reading then too, because you get one once a month. So if you're planning on staying as a member, you're more than welcome to get a tarot reading, and you'll still be able to get an astrology reading next week. All right, so Christina says, 2 much younger men have expressed interest. Mommy issues? Any better prospects on the horizon? All right, well, let's take a look. That's funny. Must be in the air, girl. All right, let's see what the cards say. So what can we tell Christina about these young men? What is the deal? Is there anything else better on the horizon? I get the tarot's so sassy tonight. I get the 4 of Pentacles, the Empress card, and the Chariot. I wouldn't automatically assume just because younger men are interested in you, they have mommy issues, but the tarot seems to think that that's funny. I think it's more about you kind of going, number one, like the Empress card coming up as like the right now card, like, hey, I've still got it, right? So that's something that I would give myself a pat on the back for. But I also feel like the 4 of Pentacles coming up is you kind of being like, what's the deal? What do these men want? You know, what are they interested in? And like, there is a sense of not necessarily, it's like almost like not trusting them, right? Does that make sense? Like the 4 of Pentacles is like, what's the catch? Like, what are you trying to get at? Like, what is the issue? What's the catch here? Like, there's almost a sense of you not trusting it or feeling like something is off, and you almost have your armor on, right? The 4 of Coins is like, I don't want to open up, like I don't feel safe, or this feels like something that's not what I'm used to, or I'm outside of my comfort zone. So like, no. She says, ethical issue as I am their supervisor, no bueno. So there you go. So, you know, I mean, I feel like you're putting your walls up. If you are doing that, it sounds like you're doing it for moral reasons. You're also realizing 4 of Pentacles, like, hey, this is my job. This is my bread and butter. I'm not mixing this with that. That's not something I'm interested in doing. And like, I'm keeping that kind of boundary. But the Empress card coming up means that you're giving off this energy, not like of like mommy, but like mommy, right? There's a difference. And I think that the Empress card can be talking about confidence and success and beauty and also independence. And like, what I love about the Empress is that she doesn't need anyone. right? She's complete and she's whole. So there can be a sense of people being attracted to that because they're like, oh, I want like a woman, right? I don't want like a girl. So with the Empress card coming up right now, it just means that you're doing really well in terms of like your place in the world, and you're able to provide for yourself, and like you have a high standard. And obviously there is a sense of you looking at it kind of going like, I could be your mom. I don't think so. But I also feel like this is about you recognizing that needing to recognize you're putting out a vibe. Like there's a vibe that's like, I have a lot to offer. The Chariot card does talk about something else coming. So it's funny that you were like, is there anything else on the horizon? Literally, the Chariot card is about going the distance and being able to take action and listen to your gut and your intuition. And I would look at this as a positive sign. That's like, okay, people are noticing me. Clearly, I'm energetically open for business. So like, what's next? Let's keep it moving. Because the Chariot card does talk about like sometimes if we don't have strategy or we don't know exactly what we're looking for, or if we're not super laser focused, like we can kind of get thrown off track a little bit and we can get distracted. I don't think you're necessarily going to have that problem because the Empress is pretty grounded and she's like, no, I know what I'm worth. I know what I want. But it can mean that you need to pay more attention to your surroundings, that when you're going places and you're doing things, people could be watching you. They could be interested in you. They could be wanting to interact with you, but like you may be so hyper focused on, working or kind of getting from point A to point B that you're not really seeing that people are trying to engage with you. I would be looking for like Cancer placements. The Chariot can be talking about Cancer, Sun, Moon, Rising type of individuals. It can also be saying that there could be a trip or some traveling that's coming up. It can also be like a back and forth that you're doing with a home situation or a relocation, or maybe there's family coming to visit, or you've got family coming into town, or let's say you're going on a trip with like a sister or a cousin. Something like that's going to be brewing, which is going to give you the opportunity to be like, okay, let me go out and about into the wild, see if I can kind of interact with people. I don't think there's any intention in trying to meet people, but I think you're going to end up meeting someone. But I want you to look at it from their perspective, not so much mommy issues, more like, hey, they see what I have to offer and they're interested. And that's something that if you're aware, you can continue to kind of keep that on, especially when you're potentially going to be traveling or doing some things and bringing people in. Now, this is also about feeling like you're going to be victorious in your love life, or that there is going to be a sense of you feeling like you have more control, or maybe you feel like you're getting involved in relationships or you're meeting people where you're kind of running the show, like you're wearing the pants in the situation. Not because you have to, because anything that they bring to the table, it has to be something that's more or better than what you're already giving yourself. They're gonna have to really impress you, I guess so to say. But yeah, not so much interested in who's been around, but I do think this is a shift in the right direction, and that you're gonna be feeling a lot more confident and recognizing that people are seeing you in a really positive way, and that should also make you feel confident as you're kind of approaching people in your day-to-day, right? Hopefully that's helpful for you, and I hope you do meet someone. All right, Felicia and Joanne, you guys are next after I take Naderade. Naderade says, I'm a Libra rising, Aquarius sun and Aquarius moon. Okay, so you got all that 5th house energy. Scorpio, Uranus, Cancer, Saturn, Jupiter and Aries, late degrees Libra rising. I've had a difficult 3 years. When will my grievance tell me when I go back to work? Well, late Libra rising. The positive is that you've got Jupiter in your 10th house, whole sign. Problem is that it's dancing with your Saturn, and you have a debilitated Saturn in Cancer. So I would say the positive is you just had this eclipse that happened in your 6th house, which is about your work and your routine. It was in opposition to Saturn and Neptune, so there was like a sense of you feeling isolated from work, not being able to go back to work. And also Venus is kind of dancing with the South Node this week. So that can also mean that it's finally kind of clearing some stuff up. And what you'll probably see when Venus goes into Scorpio, and also when we start seeing, Sun going into Scorpio, Mars is already in Scorpio, all these planets throughout mid-October to November are going to trine Saturn and Neptune. And that's going to open the door to being like working again, getting back to work, changes with your schedule, that kind of stuff. And then the Mercury retrograde is about Libra risings, also like having a change in making money or going back to work as well. So mid-October, early November is when you should probably see that. Could be sooner. I get the World card, followed by the Judgment card, followed by the Strength card. These are 3 major arcana cards. Let me ask you a question. Let me look at your question here. Venus, Mercury, and Capricorn. Okay. It's a big move, Arizona to Washington. So wait a second. What will my grievance tell me when I go back to work? Let me ask you a question. Do you like what you're doing for work? Do you enjoy what you're doing? Because you've got two cards here that are talking about conclusions and completions. And it doesn't mean that you have to quit your job or stop doing what you're doing. But I think about like Saturn being in the 6th house and Neptune being in the 6th house. And it's very possible that if that's not the department you're supposed to work in, if that's not the team you're supposed to work with, if that's not the schedule that's most beneficial for you, there could definitely be some hangups. Now, I think that Saturn trine Saturn is actually going to keep you employed. I think Jupiter trine your Saturn is also or trine transit Saturn is also going to be beneficial. But the World card and the Judgment card is kind of talking about going like, okay, am I not supposed to be here? Like, am I supposed to be wrapping this up and like going somewhere else? And I could be literally moving and relocating and going, and transferring to a different job or taking on a different job. It could also mean that this cycle is finally completing, which you're starting to see after these eclipses. And the Judgment card is about looking at something and being like, okay, there's going to be a definitive decision as to whether or not you're going to stay or you're going to go. And once that decision is made, I do see it being beneficial for you on the other side. It almost looks like there's been a lot of like stress and tension in regards to like this work stuff, basically since like July of this year, when we got into like Cancer season. I think about Libra risings, right? You had a Mercury retrograde that was happening in obviously Leo, so it was taking away from people. You had a Mars retrograde that was happening in Cancer earlier this year, which was also some big job changes. And then you had Venus and a Mercury retrograde in your 6th house. Like Libra risings have had nothing but lots of challenges either with their health or with their work or with their schedule. He says, Barbara for 30, grievance, once up, yes, changes, yeah, so I changed careers 3 years ago. Well, that's a good career for you if you've got, planets that are kind of moving through the 6th house, which is going to be about like, hospitality or like working in the service industry. But I think the long and short of it is if you're a late degree Libra rising, you're still going to see Saturn and Neptune in Aries next year, which is still going to be in your 6th house. So it could be about meeting clients in a new way, working in a new space, getting into like a new kind of schedule or routine. I do feel like one of the strongest periods for Libra risings is actually going to be the next 2 months for either getting back to work, working, or feeling more confident with what they're doing. There are still eclipses coming in Pisces, which could change your schedule or your routine next year. There is still going to be a retrograde that's going to be happening in Pisces that's going to change next year. I'd be listening to Scorpio, and I do feel like a lot of the strength that's going to be kind of coming through, like the turning points with your work over the next 12 months is going to be about you taking stock in where is the best place for me to be working. If you love what you're doing, you just don't love where you've been working, or you don't like the type of clientele that you're seeing, or you don't like the kind of businesses that you're working with, it's about finding a way to kind of forge your own way and have more independence in what you're doing for a living. Like that's the long and short of it. And when you see Jupiter transiting your 10th house, your career will grow, but it's coming into conjunction with Saturn, which means you're kind of looking at, do I need to move and relocate in order to kind of start a new business? Do I, open up something small that's going to be close to my home, right? Saturn is restriction, Jupiter is contraction. And many Libra risings will find that if they are either focusing on relocating for work, or if they're doing some kind of work that's connected to social media, because Jupiter is connected to your 3rd house, that will expand your business. And so you can start doing that even if you're planning on moving. You can start building your brand and like building up that momentum. But you're really going to see as you're getting to the tail end of the year that you're having to figure out what you're doing with the living situation so you can get better situated as you're getting into the beginning of 2026. And then you will see things take off like wildfire. Basically from about February until, next summer, you're gonna have really good transits. That's gonna expand what's going on with your career. But you have to make decisions about, what do I wanna be doing? Am I gonna be there long term? Is this a situation that is gonna be sustainable for me? And like some of the bigger decisions you're making about your home and your private life is gonna have even bigger effects on your career next year, okay? But 3 majors means it's time to get going. And also creative, right? Being creative. The strength card is saying, what are my strengths? How can I apply, and bring in either, new services? Do you start seeing kids, right? The strength card can be about working with younger people. Do you decide that, you want to be offering cuts for people with longer hair, not just seeing men? Maybe you're seeing women. Maybe you're getting more creative with color and really diversifying some of the offerings that you have so that way you're bringing in a different kind of clientele. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Nate. I'll catch you here next month. All right, so we have got Christina. Oh, no, wait, we just took Christina. We've got Felicia, Joanne, and Aaliyah. Aliyah, am I saying that right? I think it's Aaliyah. Readings are now closed, so if you guys got in, great. If not, I'll catch you next week. All right, let's take Miss Felicia. What's up, Felicia? She says, I just lost my job in a city I just moved to, and I feel a bit paralyzed. So seeking general advice for the next 3 months. What should I be focusing on during this transitional period? How do I best navigate this period as a Leo sun, Leo rising, Taurus moon? Woof. Well, take a deep breath. You're all fixed energy, so you're usually just like steadfast. So when things kind of change, it can be a little difficult to kind of handle. In a nutshell, I think about how, we're going to be seeing for Leo risings, Mercury turning retrograde in your 4th house. It's actually going to start in your 5th in Sagittarius in November, but it's going to go into your 4th. And that can materialize as you being like, did I make a mistake with where I'm living? Should I be moving? Should I be not moving? I would say let's not make any decisions yet. Clearly, you moved there. You're committed to being there. You took a job. The job didn't work out. I would attribute a lot of that probably to either some really harsh aspects that are going on with your Venus. That could be one. There could also be the fact that, now you have got Uranus coming back into your 10th house here pretty soon, which could change some stuff with work. I would also say that it's been difficult for Leo risings in terms of finances with the eclipses in the 2nd house where there's been expenses and obviously in your case moving, and then the shocks and surprises of no longer working somewhere. And then the last transit is going to be Venus hitting the South Node. So watching expenses while you're kind of in the in-between, at least for like the next couple of weeks, I think is smart. But let's see, what does the next couple of months hold for Felicia now that she's moved, and what does she need to be focusing on while she's kind of in this transitional phase? All right, so I've got the 9 of Swords, the 5 of Cups, and the Ace of Coins. Thank Goddess. Yeah, it's stressful. I'd be stressed out too. I think that, the 9 of Swords is like, this is not how I saw things going. And it's definitely like kind of Panicville. And so maybe that's where you've been, where you're like, I just got here. I literally just got inboxed. I got everything ready to go. And like, why is this happening? This is not supposed to go down this way. But you can't cry over spilled milk. The 9 of Swords is also reminding you like not to stress out and worry over things right now. I know easier said than done, because that's going to perpetuate and make it a bigger problem. Usually when this comes up in regards to career, this is about stress from work, but it also comes up from like feeling like, there's tension and something that's like, that's going to break. And so at least now before you got into that job that was a no-go. It might have meant that it might have been a nightmare job, or it might have been a situation where you felt like you got into it and then you had to stay there, versus kind of ripping the Band-Aid off now, putting yourself in a position where you're willing to go and look for something new. And I think you kind of have to stick it out, at least for the immediate year. That's kind of the time frame we're working with. The 5 of Cups is also kind of being like upset and disappointed. Like this is a card where, obviously everything's kind of dark. It's kind of gray. He's looking at the 3 cups that are tipped over. He doesn't see the 2 cups that are behind him. I would be applying for jobs, but not getting discouraged if you're feeling like you're not getting a call back from everybody. The job market's difficult right now. Part of that is the eclipses in Virgo, the South Node in Virgo. If I had $1 for everybody I've been hearing this from recently, I would not be doing readings on the internet. It's rough out there. But I do know that it is possible with Venus hitting the South Node for you here very soon. It could actually help you tap into some untapped potential work-wise and some things that can come in. So I would be watching when the moon is going through Capricorn or Taurus, or when it's going through Virgo. These are the times that you're going to want to pay attention, because that's when stuff's going to get kind of pinged when it comes to the earth signs. In particular, you're actually going to see some really good transits this week where the moon is going to go through Capricorn and it's going to trine Venus. So like the 29th and the 30th can be beneficial for, trying to make contact and connecting with people work-wise. And your 6th house as a Leo rising is obviously going to be connected to Capricorn season. So I think of like the Leo risings, there's a huge buildup at work that's going to happen. Granted, it's not going to be until closer to, you know, the end of December going into January. So I just have to put that out there. So plan that it could take, you know, a couple of months to kind of see something come in that you feel like is good, that you're committed with. But don't get hung up on, you know, what didn't work, what didn't play out, you know, what was wrong with me. Don't worry about that. I think that was a job you would have gotten stuck in, and it's better that you're, like I said, ripping off the Band-Aid now rather than later. The positive and the saving grace in your reading is the fact that you pulled the Ace of Coins. And so this is a card we want to see when we're unemployed. This is meaning money is coming. There's about to be a more fruitful or beneficial opportunity. You're going to be finding, you know, your stable kind of, you know, basis when it comes to work. Can be coming as early as a month, okay? But I have to tell you, astrologically, it can take until, you know, closer to December. So we're sitting here in September, October, November, December. It could take 3 months. It also means that there can be some like financial cushion, or there's going to be something that's going to be supporting you. So that could mean, you know, you are getting unemployment, or that means that maybe, you know, you have some, you know, money that you're kind of tapping into that you've saved, or maybe you've got a cushion. But I think that this means that there is abundance coming your way and that you're about to be given an opportunity or an offer. So focus more on gratitude. Look at this in a sense that's like, look, the universe brought me here to this location for a reason. Clearly I'm supposed to be here. There is a job waiting here for me. Things are panning out for me. This was cleared out of the way. Okay, so what is it that you're sending me? Because clearly there's something better that is in store. And when this card comes up, it talks specifically about the end of December through the beginning of January. In a career sense, it literally means new job. It also means that there could be, you know, an opportunity for a higher pay. It means that there could also be some kind of like physical or material success that's coming your way. And obviously this is a card of, you know, financial abundance. So be more focused on what's coming rather than getting hung up on what didn't work. And use this time to not only really strategize and think about what kind of an ideal position you could be in, but also kind of getting grounded and familiarizing yourself with this new space that you have moved to. Okay. Good luck on your new adventure. Where did you move to? I'm very curious. All right, we've got Joanne and then Aaliyah. Joanne says, 3 cards, Candace. All right, you got it. What's up, intuitive soul? Hello. Hello from California. All right, Joanne says, oh girl, enjoy LA. Depending on what neighborhood you're in. At least you're in a city where there's a lot of opportunity. All right, so Joanne says 7-degree Libra rising, Taurus sun, Venus conjunct the 8th house, North node in the 7th house, looking to consolidate mortgage expenses, possibly move or increase of income. Well, that sounds about right. It's a combination of things. It's a combination of your sun is in the 8th house and Uranus is coming back into the 8th house. So you want to switch up and you want to change up things in regards to your debt, loans, resources, investments. It's also being a Libra rising, you know, now you have Mars going through your 2nd house. So with Mars and Scorpio in the 2nd house, it's how can I make money? How can I bring it quickly? What am I paying off? What am I investing in? So on one hand, you could be spending a lot of money, but just as you're spending it, money can be coming in or you're renegotiating things. Venus is your 8th house lord. And so it's going into a conjunction with the South node in the 12th. So that could be about wrapping up stuff, you know, connecting to expenses. And I would use the transits that are coming up to renegotiate anything that's debt or mortgage related. So what's going to happen is in mid-November, Mercury is going to turn retrograde. And when Mercury turns retrograde, it deals with the global markets for Libra rising. So it means that there's going to be some changes. Maybe the interest rates come down a little bit. Maybe you're going to get a better deal if you're trying to, you know, consolidate, or if you're trying to, you know, renegotiate a mortgage terms. And you're going to have the opportunity basically, you know, early November all the way to the beginning of December to do that. Now it will turn retrograde in Sag, so it's going to be about documents, ideas, and communications about money, and then it's going to go into the 2nd house of how you're actually spending money, and it's going to trine Saturn in your 6th house, which deals with debt and it's also going to make some oppositions to Uranus and Taurus in your 8th. So changing of markets, changing of kind of strategy, renegotiating that stuff. Basically, it's all going down in November. So do you see me moving? The move will likely come after some of this stuff gets worked out. So can you increase your income? Yes, I think you can, especially if there's going to be some recognition or changes of status at work. Those will be the trines. But a move is much more likely after the Mercury retrograde in the 3rd house. So you're looking at the second half of December into about February as planets all go through your 4th. So let's see what the cards are looking like on all of this stuff for you. We have got in this order the 9 of Coins, the Emperor, and the 9 of Wands. So, you know, you're not wanting to give up, right? Like money stuff, job stuff, and any debt stuff can all get worked out, like all of it. It sounds crazy, but it's literally the 2nd, 6th, and 10th house that are all getting, you know, kind of improved. Dealing with debt and mortgages and like paying stuff off, that's very much Saturn in your 6th. And I feel like the 9 of Pentacles is saying you have the capability of making more money and improving your job. And also, you know, you're going to be given the opportunity to decide, do I want to renegotiate some of these debt or loan terms, or, you know, consolidate debt so that way I can finally start paying it off? But it's also going to be about money management. And so through that Mercury retrograde in November, it's like changing the way that you look at how you're spending and what you need. And like there could be some budgeting stuff that can happen. The Emperor card is a positive step in the right direction when it comes to your career and feeling like you're really showing up and you're, you know, kind of, you know, taking the wheel and focusing on responsibility and authority at work. It can also be talking about dealing with a boss or dealing with like a husband or like a father figure who's helping you navigate some of the responsibilities that are going to be on the home front. Usually this, you know, the 9 of Coins and the Emperor card is kind of saying like, okay, I know the way out of this is about really prioritizing work. And if I can get really serious about work, or if I can make some headway at work, it's going to make a lot of these other problems go away. And it's going to give you the opportunity to be like, I can pay some stuff off, you know, I can have a little bit more kind of recognition and success. And like Libra risings are really going to come into a period over the next 2 months where everything can go according to plan. But just because more money is coming in doesn't mean that you want to be spending it. So it's going to be about budgeting, and instead of indulging, it's going to be about being responsible and being like, let me throw some money at the debt. Let's try to pay the debt down. Let's try to get some more money in the savings. So that way you're not feeling like you're in a pinch again where you're struggling, because the 9 of Wands is coming up, which is saying like you're not willing to kind of give up, but it has kind of felt like it's been like an uphill battle either at work or dealing with some of your financial situations for the better part of the last year. Certainly Uranus on your sun will do that as well. So it does make you feel like there's constantly fluctuations and changes kind of going on with your relationship with men. So that could be a partner, that could be business partners, that could be clients. When Uranus is off of your sun in the new year, you know, I think you're going to see some of your finances stabilize. Also, you know, being a Libra rising and having Venus in your 8th house is not easy. There's always going to be some tumultuous things that are going to be happening with relationships. But it looks like you're unwilling to give up, and that you feel like you've come so far that you don't want to, you know, take a job where you're kind of sidestepping and like backing away from some of the success that you've had. And you don't want to feel like you're also giving up on, you know, some of the things that you have invested in, whether that's your home or, you know, your financial situation. You don't want to feel like you have to lose something. Retrogrades are some of the best times, especially when it's an aspect to your 8th house or your 6th house, to go and renegotiate terms. So I'd say 100% yes, consolidate, you know, mortgage and expenses, be willing to tighten the belt a little bit. And Saturn in your 6th house is going to have you work your butt off until the beginning of next year, but it will actually materialize as, I think, feeling a lot more solid, and also feeling like you're really proud of yourself. Like you'll come out of that period and you'll be like, yeah, I worked through it. And you'll probably have a lot more one-on-one time with clients next year, especially if Saturn and Neptune go into Aries. I don't know what kind of law you practice. That could be, you know, people who are, you know, facing jail time could be Saturn and Neptune. You could be doing immigration law. You could be doing divorce law. You could be doing personal injury law. It may open up a whole new door with Uranus going into your 9th house of like different types of like legal things that you're kind of like willing to kind of tackle, or you're kind of keeping an open mind as to what types of clients you're like wanting to kind of connect with. Oh, you're looking to go to an attorney to refinance. Okay, got it. Well, Saturn and Neptune being along your 7th house is definitely a good time to do that. right? I actually really feel like, depending on what you're doing work-wise, it doesn't matter what you're doing. With Saturn being in your 6th house, it's like it's going to work you overtime, but at the same time, it's going to teach you like a new work ethic, and you're going to realize that the money doesn't come easy because some of the aspects to your 2nd house. And you're going to go, okay, well, now I'm going to learn how to like work smarter, not harder. But if you're needing to work with a lawyer to refinance specifically, lawyers are going to be kind of connected to Jupiter. So the Mercury retrograde in your Jupiter house, which will be in November, will trine Saturn, a house of debt, 6th house, and it's going to oppose Uranus, which is going to be what you owe. My advice is get the show on the road and start doing that before you get to like the 5th or 6th of November. Okay, once you start getting into the Mercury retrograde shadow, it's going to be harder and there's going to be some delays. So try to talk to somebody by about the 5th or 6th of November. But you'll be able to overcome it. Like you'll be able to do that. And part of the karmic debt of Saturn in the 6th house is literally debt itself and how you're getting it worked out. So hopefully that's helpful. Thank you for the clarification. All right, so we've got Aaliyah, who is a Scorpio, Leo Scorpio, so Scorpio, Sun, Moon, and Rising. So Scorpio Sun, Leo Moon, Scorpio Rising. Just want to confirm. Thank you, JM. What does Nederate say? Not creepy, however, I love your character. I'll be staying as a member as long as I can. You're the only astrologer I've become a member with, and I would like a birth chart reading soon. I look into it. This day and age, I want to clarify. Compliment. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. There's a lot of us out there, so thank you for supporting me. All right, so I'm looking at Scorpio, Leo, Scorpio. I'm going to assume Scorpio, rising, moon. Yes? Okay. Scorpio sun, Leo moon, Scorpio rising. All right, so you've been getting raked over the coals with some of those transits, having had a Mars retrograde, your chart ruler, having had a Mercury retrograde in your 10th house. That's been difficult for Scorpio risings when it comes to work. So let's see what we can help her see in regards to finding a job. All right, so what can we tell her about finding some work? Ooh, well, that's a card that you want to pull, huh? Ace of Wands. You know, the good news is that you got Mars in your sign. And so when I think about the Ace of Wands, I think about the element of fire. I think about how it's will, drive, passion, determination, action, physically, you know, kind of mobilizing, getting stuff done. Certainly, you know, we need to see some other stuff that's going on with the sun. And so I'm going to give you a couple dates that I would watch for. Because Scorpio risings, I don't know what degree your Scorpio placements are in, but Scorpio is going to have a Mercury-Mars conjunction, which can literally mean that you're being given the opportunity to have an interview, connect with a company, talk to someone, which is going to start around October 19th. And then you're also going to see, right after the Scorpio new moon, there is a Moon-Mercury-Mars conjunction on October 23rd. Also, really positive day for anything kind of connecting to education, travel, work, career-related, being seen, like going after what you want. And then down the road, Mercury will retrograde and it will come into conjunction with the sun, which is very fortuitous for Scorpios for their career around November 19th. And then it's also going to have Mercury conjunct Venus, which is going to be around November 25th. These are all dates that I would be paying attention to because it could be really significant, especially the Mercury Cazimi. I think can be really big for a career. I think a lot of Scorpios are going to finally have like a spotlight or like the moment in the sun where they're going to get recognition for something. And maybe somebody says, hey, we want to hire her, or she's the one that stands out, or she's the best one for the job. And like, you know, just pay attention. But when you get the Ace of Wands, it's about a new opportunity. It's about a new initiative. It's also about going in a new direction. It does talk about the fire months. So having just come out of like Leo season and Virgo season, the next fire month is going to be Sag. So it's saying basically by now, and I would say about December, you're going to see a change. Career-wise, this is about ambition and also creativity and doing something that feels like more fulfilling or where you're putting your mark on whatever it is that you're doing. And this is a yes card. So if you're looking for a job, yes, you're going to get one. Timing wise, this is usually right around the end of November to the beginning of December. And I would be saying lighting intentions, like writing intentions out. This could also be about lighting candles. This is also about that motivation that's starting. Like I think about like Scorpio risings and like Saturn, Neptune, and Aries, and they're like, how do I get motivated? You know, even if you're not working, you have a routine where you're getting up, you're working out, you're sending applications, you're going to interviews, you're finding other ways to kind of do creative work. And some Scorpio risings in particular are going to find with Saturn and Neptune going back into the 5th house, this time is giving them time to try to say, well, do I want to start my own business? Do I want to do something creative on my own? You know, do I want to be making time for hobbies, or am I dating while I'm kind of getting back into the swing of like working? So it's really about finding that passion, that momentum that's being built up for you to kind of have a turning point. But I think a lot of Scorpio risings are going to have a really big breakthrough when we see the conjunction between Mercury and the Sun. So looks like that's going to pop up just to reconfirm. That looks like that's going to be right around November 19th. Okay, where there's a new moon in Scorpio too. So a lot of you guys, because of the trine to Saturn, you're going to end up kind of starting something new. But you have to be creative, and you have to kind of really show not only that energy, but you have to show where you're different and like why you're the one for the job, and like why you're the one who can kind of come up with creative like solutions, and like you stick out and like you're going to be different in some way. So set those intentions, watch for it, take action, and find ways to be able to create a schedule even though you're not really working yet, right? Hopefully that's helpful for you. I hope you find a new gig. You'll definitely have to circle back and let me know what ends up popping up for you during some of those transits. All right, guys. Well, that is it for me for this evening. For those of you guys who are new here, please don't forget to subscribe. Click that bell button below. Subscribe to the channel. I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. Fridays are always my live shows. Catch me here next Friday at 6 o'clock Central Time for readings on the full moon in Aries. Hello, it's in Aries. Make sure you guys give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you on Sunday for the astro weather. Thanks for hanging out with me on a Friday, and I'll catch you guys back here very soon. Take care.